Hey everyone, this is Will Majeski. For this week's reading process video, I chose to do To an Athlete Dying Young by A.E. Housman. I think the reason I chose this particular poem was just because of the connection I have with it, with being an athlete and being young. I think I mentioned that in one of my forum posts. But yeah, I think that's partially the reason that I chose it, but also because I found it really easy to kind of analyze it. So yeah, get going on this. Please excuse my bad handwriting. So the time you won your town the race, we cheered you through the marketplace. Man and boy stood cheering by, and home we brought you shoulder high. So yeah, like the first part of that, it's the author's looking back on the young man's past triumphs, particularly through like an inner city race, maybe, or an inner town race. The second part of that would be, everyone was excited, man and boy. I'm sure women and girls as well. They made a great spectacle upon returning home, as he mentions. They brought him home shoulder high. If that was literal, I don't know, but it seems like it was a pretty big deal. Today, the road all runners come, shoulder high, we bring you home and set you at your threshold down, townsman of a stiller town. So, yeah, they're bringing him to a different home on this occasion, kind of connecting back to that first stanza. But this time they're carrying him in a casket. They're carrying him shoulder high, but this time he's in a casket. And the procession, like they say in the last part of that stanza, of a stiller town, the procession is not as cheerful as the one when he won the race. Smart lad, to slip betimes away from fields where glory does not stay. And early though the laurel grows, it withers quicker than the rose. So yeah, the first part of that, it seems to be that the author is praising the man for dying young. He's calling him a smart lad to slip betimes away. Uh, I think part of the reason he praises him for dying young, I mean, that's kind of an odd thing to praise somebody about. But I think it'd be that he died um, before he before his glory died. So his glory is going to outlive him. And the second part of that, I think the author was talking about how glory on earth only lasts so long, um, particularly the laurel. It's comparing, I think, earth or the glory on earth to the laurel, and maybe the glory in the afterworld to the rose. And early though the laurel grows, it withers quicker than the rose. Eyes the shady night has shut cannot see the record cut, and silence sounds no worse than cheers after earth has stopped the ears. I think this was the easiest one for me to break down. So, because he is dead, he'll never see his record broken. Death has shut his eyes, and now he'll never see the record cut. And silence sounds no worse than cheers after earth has stopped the ears. It's basically talking about how to the athlete there is no difference between silence and cheers now because he's dead, he can't hear it. Now you will not swell the rout of lads that wore their honors out, runners whom renown outran, and the name died before the man. This was probably the most like profound stanza in the whole poem to me, just because it made me think about who I would rather be. Would I rather be this young athlete who dies and his glory outlives him, or would I be somebody who, lives a long life, but my glory eventually fades out? And I think I mentioned in one of my forum posts as well, that it seems kind of selfish to want to die so you can, your glory outlives you. But, I think to each their own. Um, yeah, I talked about how the young man's success outlived him, unlike most athletes whose glory fades before they do. So set before its echoes fade, the fleet foot on the sill of shade, and hold to the low lintel up the still defended challenge cup. I did not know what he was talking about here. Um, I think I really don't know. Maybe something about putting him in the ground um, before the cheering stops, so before its echoes fade, and shade, um, shade being in the ground, while echoes fading mean before the cheers of his triumphs halt. I'm not really sure. And the last stanza, and round that early laureled head will flock to gaze the strengthless dead, and find your unwithered on its curls the garland briefer than a girl's. So I think the first part of that, the early laureled head, they're talking about a crown. The reason I think that is because in the last part, it talks about finding an unwithered, whatever, something unwithered on his curls, made of garland, and that just made me think about a crown. Um, and then the second part, will flock to gaze the strengthless dead, I think would be talking about a crowd, maybe coming and flocking and laying their eyes upon him or looking at him. Um, and they'll see him there with a crown of garland. And it won't be dead, but it'll be short, just like the athlete's life. I think that kind of ties it all together. Yeah, he'll have a crown on his head, but it won't be anything spectacular, just like, how his life was cut short and he wasn't able to, you know, do anything else spectacular except show his athletic ability.